All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to this rapid-fire explainer, where we're basically stripping away all the textbook fluff to give you a highly focused, exam-oriented speed run of ASP.NET Units 1 and 2. Now, if you're feeling a bit behind right now, seriously, don't panic. We are going to build this up from the absolute ground level. I'll be your guide today, breaking down these concepts using clear visual explanations, so you could walk into that midterm with total confidence. Here's our midterm roadmap. 1. Architecture. 2. Files and controls. 3. The page lifecycle. 4. Client versus server validation. 5. Validation controls. And 6. A rapid exam revision.
Starting off with Section 1, ASP.NET Architecture, or as I like to call it, the restaurant analogy.
Okay, so this perfectly illustrates the fundamental client-server architecture. Just think of the client, which is your web browser like Chrome or Edge, as a hungry customer in a restaurant placing an order. That order? That's your HTTP request. The server, specifically the IIS web server running the ASP.NET engine, is your waiter processing that order. Now, if the waiter needs specific ingredients, they check the database, which is basically your pantry. Finally, the server brings the finished meal, the fully rendered HTML web page, back to the browser as an HTTP response. It's really just a simple, continuous request and response cycle.
Now, grab a pen and physically circle the term IIS in your notes, because it is a guaranteed exam term. It stands for Internet Information Services, and it's Microsoft's actual web server software. Without IIS, your ASP.NET code is literally just text sitting on a hard drive. IIS is the engine that actually hosts your app, catches those incoming browser requests, and hands back the generated HTML. You know, you can even check if it's running on your Windows machine right now by just opening a browser and typing http://localhost.
Moving right along to Section 2, Essential Files and Controls. These are your building blocks. If you only remember one major difference for the midterm, please make it this one. ASP.NET completely separates the design from the logic. The .aspx file is your web form. It's the visual front end, where your HTML and all your UI controls actually live. But hiding behind that, literally called the code behind, is the .aspx.cs file. That one contains the C# brain and all your business logic. This separation is absolutely crucial because it allows a designer to tweak the visual page while a programmer simultaneously writes the C# logic behind it, without stepping on each other's toes. Now, instead of trying to memorize some massive, random list of standard controls, just group them logically by what they actually do. You've got input controls, like the text box for typing, checkbox for true or false toggles, and file upload for, well, sending files to the server. You have display controls, like labels for text, and panels for grouping other controls together. For selection, there's listbox for picking multiple things, and drop-down list for single choices. And finally, action controls, like your classic button. Oh, and definitely pay attention to properties like auto postback. You can enable that on a drop-down to instantly send a request to the server the exact second a user makes a selection. It's a real game changer for responsive pages. All right, Section 3, the ASP.NET page lifecycle. Let's look at the sequence of events. You absolutely need to memorize these first 3 critical stages of the page lifecycle for your exam. First up is the page request. The browser asks for the page, and the server checks if it needs to compile the code. Second is the start stage. The server sets up the basic request objects and, this is key, checks if it's a postback. Third is initialization, or on init. This is the exact moment your text boxes and buttons are literally born and assigned their unique ID numbers on the server. Okay, I want you to pause and really focus here. The concept of is_postback is a massive exam alert. See, HTTP is stateless, which means the server basically has amnesia and forgets you immediately after serving a page. So ASP.NET needs a way to remember your data. When you click a submit button, the page posts back to itself. The isPostback Boolean property tells your C# code, hey, is this the user's first time seeing this page, or are they clicking a button and sending data back to us? Checking this prevents the server from unnecessarily wiping and resetting all your form data every single time you click a button. Now we're crossing into Unit 2 with Section 4, Client versus Server Validation. Think of these as your application's bouncers. The exam is going to heavily test this exact comparison. Client-side validation happens instantly, right in the user's browser using JavaScript. It's super fast, gives immediate feedback, and honestly saves your server from doing extra work. But server-side validation, that happens on the IIS server. Actually, let me frame it this way. Client-side is optional for speed, but server-side is the mandatory secure final check. Why? Because a malicious user can easily just turn off JavaScript in their browser and bypass your client-side checks completely. You must always use server-side for security. Section 5 is our Validation Controls Masterclass. We're going to break this down using a 4-point trick. Let's rapidly run through the specific bouncers you need to know. First, the required field validator. The problem it solves? Empty fields. Use it for mandatory inputs like a password field. Memory trick, think of it as the gatekeeper. You shall not pass if the field is empty. Next, the RangeValidator. Problem, values outside acceptable limits. Use it for numbers or dates, like forcing an age input to be exactly between 18 and 65. Trick, the age checker. Finally, the CompareValidator. Problem, mismatched data. Use it when comparing two fields, like ensuring a password and confirm password box are totally identical. Trick, the matchmaker.
Rounding out the masterclass, we have the RegularExpressionValidator. It solves pattern matching. Use it for emails or phone numbers, like forcing the format of a zip code. Memory trick, the pattern cop. Then there's the CustomValidator. Use this when you have complex, unique business logic, like querying a database to see if a username is already taken. Trick, the DIY bouncer. And lastly, the ValidationSummary. Now, this one doesn't actually check inputs itself. Instead, it gathers up all the error messages from your other validators and displays them in one neat list, usually at the top of the page. Think of it as the rap sheet.
When you're frantically scribbling out code snippets on the test, whatever you do, never forget these properties. Control to validate is literally the glue. It tells your bouncer exactly which text box it's supposed to be guarding. If you forget to set this, your code will just crash. Error message is the text that shows up in your validation summary, while text is that little red asterisk right next to the box. And absolutely critical, always check the page.isValid Boolean property in your C# code before saving any data. That is your ultimate server-side final confirmation. All right, Section 6, Rapid Midterm Exam Revision. This is the boss fight. Let's lock in these 5 foundational definitions into your brain right now. Remember that ASP.NET is a server-side framework. IIS is the Microsoft web server hosting it. ASP.NET uses JIT, or just-in-time compilation, which gives massive performance boosts over older interpreted scripts. Code behind is that brilliant separation of the visual.aspx from the C# logic. And an application pool in IIS, that just isolates your app, so if one crashes and burns, the rest stay perfectly online. Go ahead and take a mental screenshot of this slide. Seriously, if you can comfortably answer these specific points, explaining the restaurant analogy for client-server, comparing the speed of client validation versus the strict security of server validation, explaining exactly why is postback saves your form data from amnesia, and listing out your 5 validation bouncers, you are fully prepared.
So are you ready to absolutely crush this ASP.NET midterm? You now have a highly focused, high-yield understanding of the architecture, the page lifecycle, and data validation. You've got the tools. But beyond just passing this midterm, think about this. Now that you know how to build dynamic web forms and securely lock out bad data with these bouncers, what kind of bulletproof application are you going to build next? Trust your preparation, and good luck.